Thanks, Dennis.
Allegiance. Allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll do the roll call. Meg Quinn here.
Dr. Harris here,
Elizabeth Ricketson here.
Chris Roach here.
Okay. And we're missing Matt and Lori and Maya. Okay. Okay.
I just put that math together. You technically don't have a quorum until one of those others get here, because Bruce is not a voting member.
That's right.
I
Can
can't vote.
we have the
I can
meeting but
just-
not
I can
vote on
just mess
anything?
that up.
You'd need one more to have a quorum.
Okay.
Got Matt texting me.
If you can join Zoom, that'd be great.
Does anyone have Lori's number?
Yeah, we have it in,
Yeah, actually,
we have the
yeah.
roster, right?
Sorry to be difficult, but.
Yeah, I've got probably
You read Robert's rules.
Yeah.
I had a whole municipal league training on parliamentary procedure,
Oh, nice.
so you're technically one shy,
Okay. It's gotta be 50%.
Plus one. and you're right at 50%. Unfortunately, nothing against you, Bruce, but that's just the way it's written. Gotta be a voting resident to count.
You're gonna, did you have
I just texted her.
And I'll text Maya, I'll send Maya an email.
Yeah, mine's usually really good about saying I gotta.
Yeah, I know she's had a lot of travel recently.
You swear me in, I'll be, you know,
You gotta get approved by the council.
oh, that's right, that'll never happen.
Well, you have to wait till tomorrow.
So Meg's reaching out. What did he say? Did Matt,
He has not responded.
oh,
I shouldn't have said I saw him in town earlier. Now you all will be mad. I noticed because he's driving his wife's Tahoe around because his Jeep has a clutch that's going out.
uh-oh.
He's been milking that for a couple of weeks now, so.
Yeah, you can only love them so far.
Yeah, you steal the wife's vehicle too long and.
Yeah.
Good thing it's schooled out.
He needs a new one.
Yeah, yeah.
Still,
That you?
it's
Not.
personal.
Walk out here and make sure nobody's.
Oh, Lori says she'll be here soon.
Okay,
Okay.
all right, well, we'll be on hold then for a minute. So,
So do we say psych and start over?
well, we'll call it to order again in a minute, because that way we want to make sure we have a quorum. So I hate to stop the recording though, but
Do you ungavel?
yeah, I don't know. You know, I don't like that gavel.
I think we'll be okay if you do the free gavel.
Okay, we'll just re-gavel it. Lori said
You
she's
didn't
on
do
her
it.
way,
Okay.
so. I meant,
Thank you,
I
Dennis.
think, what was the, I was just gonna ask some questions. I think I got my answer about the airport the other night, BJ.
What answers did you get?
It's on hold because of the grant.
Grant,
Okay,
so same thing I heard.
yeah. Then how's the water meter stuff going?
So last council meeting, we had to go in, so we had planned out, it's like 2,050 water meters. And we planned for 300 can replacements. But the can replacement that we greenlit, once they started pulling all the materials, they weren't the high altitude, low temperature cans.
Ah,
So fortunately, those are not hard to get. So
that's good.
kickoff was actually supposed to be like this week. They were gonna start pulling meters.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Hello.
hey there.
You're fine. Yes, I've never seen you in person. so-
Yeah.
Glad you're doing this.
So we think we've got a week or two delay is all, and they're gonna start
Okay.
replacing, so.
That's exciting. I'm excited about that.
Do they have an idea where they're starting or anything? I figure they do.
So I know the Director Epler has been working with them on that, because we're probably gonna have some guys following them around. Cause those new meters all have ultrasonic leak detection and everything, so we're gonna be finding lots of new leaks once they're going live. I forget how many they said they're gonna be able to do every week, it's like 60. Cause most of them are, you go in, you yank the existing one and
Yeah,
you get it good.
and you just go down in the can,
In
right?
can,
Yeah.
yeah, so that's why we planned, like, I think it was 10% or 15%, we planned, oh, this can is shot, we need to dig the whole can up and go, but yeah. The hope is they can get it all done this summer.
That's good. Okay, so now I can call us back to order, because now we have money.
You have a
All
quorum,
right,
yeah.
yeah, we're going back to order. I don't think we need to repeat the pledge of allegiance and you'll adjust the roll. Yep. Okay. All right, so the first thing was approval of the agenda. Does anybody want a motion?
I move that we approve the agenda.
Okay, anybody second?
Second,
Okay, all right. So all in approval? Aye?
I,
All right, okay, there we go. And the minutes. So you had sent out, Meg had sent out the minutes. And so do we have a motion to approve those?
make a motion to approve the minutes from last meeting.
Okay, anybody second? Okay, all right, all in favor? Aye, okay, good. All right, so new business, we're gonna rearrange this a little bit because we're still waiting on a couple of people. But I think we could start with the update on the financials of modular construction. So do you want to give us an update?
So, yep, so right now where we are with modulars, we got the hard numbers in on the second vendor of modulars. Just as a reminder, we looked at a spread of units that were 400 square footers up to 800 square footers. The pricing spread was not nearly as dramatic as we thought, like
Mhm,
$10,000 from the most expensive to the least.
mhm.
So we basically said, well, the 2 bedroom, 2 baths are gonna be the easiest to rent to the broadest number of people. So we said, let's start with 6 of those.
Okay,
We are tentatively looking at doing 4 more of those, specifically to start addressing our healthcare needs. I was at the Southern Central Colfax County Hospital District meeting last week. They're looking into putting a committee together to figure out what they could do to get us some help. The resort presented as well. What we're all trying to figure out is how to get FA1 open before ski season. If we could find a way to get that open and operate as an urgent care, I know my family's used it for that, you know, up here with little kids and bicycles and all of the things, so that's what we're hoping. I think the village is prepared to go that alone if the hospital district is unwilling, either in the time constraints or whatever it is, to come up with some type of a public-private agreement on how to do that, so we're moving forward with that. One change we did look at from an affordability perspective was, do we do air conditioning in the modulars or not? Initially, it was just gonna be mini splits. They changed their minds on that and they went to a full ducted system, which added a fair bit of cost. And so we've asked them to back that out as a separate item, to just have these with electric heat. And push that aside. We're really trying to keep the rent numbers down.
sure.
So that's getting closer. I drove around with Mayor Lindsay for a while, looking at some of the lots. I don't know, I know Elizabeth has sent me some. We've looked at 2 different sites that are kind of our primary. We did conduct a review. I think I mentioned last time, I recently combined lots, and Carl Nelson, the surveyor, recommended we go see if there was some land that he thought the village still owned. Santos actually put a map together for all of that. We
Okay.
do not own a piece of suitable dirt for this right now.
Okay.
So the couple of properties that we've looked at primarily are off of Elliott Barker. There's a little offshoot, kind of a cul-de-sac down there. It looks great. It's right across the street from the existing clinic. The holdup we found there is that is actually not currently a village road, that cul-de-sac.
Across that, hold on, so you're talking about for the modular units,
Yes,
right? Okay.
for the modular
So
unit.
you're talking about the little
The little-
cul-de-sac that I
Yep.
The 12 acres, okay.
correct.
Okay,
So, apparently a lot of that land is also owned by, finance manager Heather, if you know her, so there's some conversations there, like, okay, what could we do with this dirt? We would have to put the infrastructure in, which is complicated a little bit by the fact that that road has not been assumed maintenance by the village yet. It is not a platted road. We could fix that, but it's just another step in the process.
okay,
So, Mayor Lindsay took manager Epler out to look at the couple of 3 properties that we're looking at to give him a chance to say, okay, if I'm gonna make you pull, water, sewer, all of the things to it, tell me which ones of these are gonna be easier or harder to do.
okay.
So, that is ongoing. We've asked for the air conditioning numbers to be backed out.
Okay.
We are hoping to be at a decision point fairly quickly, as in after the 4th.
Okay.
On here's the numbers for the units, here's how many we'd like to do, and here's where we'd like to do them.
Okay.
That is all still around the idea of we'd like to get C of Os and rent these September, October
Okay.
at the latest. So I don't think it's gonna be a huge number, but that's where the modular unit, what I'll call phase 1 is headed. None of the pieces of dirt we've looked at, with one exception, are big enough really to do phase 1, 2, and 3. I think we could probably on the 14 to 16 units an acre, so
Mhm.
phase 1 dirt might support 30 of these in total,
Okay.
but we would only be doing, 10 or so this year.
Okay.
So it'd give us a phase 2 ready to go for next year.
So that little piece of land, and it's not really little, it's 12 acres. On the way to that piece of land, isn't there some other, or is that on a separate road?
So
Those other pieces
they-
of land,
They're all on that cul-de-sac,
right?
but
Okay.
unfortunately, once you turn
Right, when you
turn
turn
north
right,
off of
okay.
Elliott Barker, some of the land is actually quite good. It's not
Right,
down in the low
flat.
bottoms, it's flat enough.
Right.
But if we were to take that on, if anyone knows where Daniel Cerna's lot is, that's essentially the cul-de-sac we're talking about. We would have to then assume the entirety of the road,
Okay,
would be then a village road.
so is Daniel Turner the one that's on the right-hand side, and then there's storage sheds on the left-hand side?
Correct, and the big piece of dirt is west of there. It's
Right,
behind the
right.
storage sheds.
It'd be nice to see those storage sheds cleaned up.
Yeah.
On the backside of them, there's a bunch of junk
There is,
out there. So
yeah, and it's,
if you're gonna build housing there, that would be maybe
yeah,
some sort of way to get that incentive so that the people who are gonna be living there, or put some trees up, to kind of cover it up.
The other
Make it
challenge-
nice for 'em,
the other challenge down there, if we did assume the road and pull the infrastructure down the road, we would go to those, there's 2 trailers down there. They've been heavily added onto over the years, but we would force them likely to hook up to the sewer line that's in front, so it would impact them slightly, but the land is the right size, the price is
Mhm.
kind of in the ballpark where it needs to be, so those are our primary sites for now, but the road is the hurdle we've hit most recently.
And Santos, is that the same thing you were referring to earlier? When we asked you where we're gonna put it?
No, it wasn't. I think that there's, I think you'll hear tonight that there's a couple of opportunities being discussed as to housing options in the village. This one that was just described is one, but that's really, correct me if I'm wrong, Jake, really looking at the modular option for placement. The other options being considered are for townhome type of structures. So they're not, I want to say there's some variety being considered, which I think is helpful because my experience in housing is that you can't have just one solution because it's
Sure.
it's a spectrum of options that need to be provided. So if we can get a number of options moving forward, that's great. But the other side, I think the property owner is cleared through the Canyon construction. Can tell you a little bit more about that one. I will say that I did speak with MFA this afternoon. There was a deadline on Friday for applications to be submitted for funding from the state for infrastructure site development. Colfax County, Mora County, San Miguel County were the only counties eligible to seek funding. 2 applications have been submitted. I believe both applications have been from Angel Fire, which is great. And it's first come, first serve. So as the money's gone, the money's gone. This will be the first round of reviews since the awards were provided to the state from the federal government. So I'm hopeful that there can be a match on some funding options, as Jake described, and that property, I think on all the properties, getting extensions of water, sewer, road extensions as well, are all costs and variables that if we could lower or subsidize, it lowers the cost of the units to make it more affordable for people to get into, so.
So Santos is right. Everything we're talking about for the Village of Angel Fire doing this developer would be units that the village would own and operate as rentals. That's really all we're at. So, I know most of you probably have met Mr. Bob Holland here, so he would be the first item on the agenda. Santos kind of hinted about it a little bit, but his development is much larger and multifaceted. So, unless there were other questions on the modular.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, so you were saying, so you were talking with them about mini splits and then said,
Yes.
let's do a full ducted system. So the system that we're asking about now, is that gonna be a ducted heat system that AC could be added to, or no?
No, so generally the way that this one vendor has liked to do their air conditioning / heating
Yeah.
is with a mini split.
Right?
Do you all know what a mini split is?
The
The little wall hung units that are, so those are heat pumps. They will heat and cool simultaneously. Unfortunately, the 2-bedroom, 2-bath is a big enough structure. You can't do it with one mini split. You'd have to start doing multiple. And so they flipped over to a traditional ducted system, but it was about a $10,000 add.
Yeah.
It also, from a ducted system perspective and the way that Sustainability Partners finances things, it increases the rents more because ducted systems have higher maintenance costs and different life cycles. And when they're looking at the cost of these, life cycle is something they factor in. So I haven't gotten the revised numbers back without it. What we would likely flip over to is units without air conditioning, that we would either go with radiators, baseboards, some other type of heat.
Yeah.
So-
And ceiling fans?
Ceiling fans,
Yeah, for
yep,
sure.
yep.
That
They do make
we can get through it.
mini splits now that you can put multiple units on one.
They do. And so we've asked them to basically, we had kind of the mid option quoted
Mhm.
and they defaulted to the most expensive option. So we said, okay, let's peel that back a little bit.
Mhm.
So I don't think we're at a final decision there. We just want to understand the cost impacts, mostly as it relates to the rent. Because again, we'd really like to be closer to that $1,200 a month number for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath versus the $1,400. I know that's not, a huge difference, but if most homes here don't have air conditioning, so
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I've done a 1,200 square foot house with mini splits. on
Yeah,
one-
yeah,
One unit.
right. So we may look to do it as a different option. We just didn't want to get held up at that step.
So the only thing I want to mention before we move on is that for those of you who weren't right here before the meeting started, Bruce brought an option for everybody to look at. And so maybe after the meeting, if you haven't seen that document, it's related to using containers, shipping containers to make modular type homes. So that would be an option for everybody to just kind of browse through and could be another example of doing something in the future. So, okay, all right. Okay, so we'll go back to A and talk with our developer. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it.
Sorry I was late.
Oh, no worries. Do you wanna come up, do you wanna come up here and talk so maybe the camera can see you or?
Sorry, this table's not usually here with all the remodel going on. We're a little out of sorts, so.
So, thank you for having me. They go 10 miles an hour. I don't know how they're gonna do it.
It is kind of crazy.
And I left house at 25 minutes after 4, figuring, okay.
Mhm. It took us an hour the other day to get to the house.
So, I've owned this property for 28 years. It has been, I could write a novel about it.
Is it the one on the corner behind the ReMax office or is it a different
Yes.
property? Okay,
It's,
that,
right, it's
Okay.
7.5 acres.
okay.
And the first, when I bought it, the first issue was sewer and water. There were 3 people on the main drag that said, no, we don't want sewer and water. So that tied it up for 8 years in the courts. Then that finally got done. And of course, you have to hit the markets just right for what you're doing. whether it's a hotel, we were at one time gonna do a Holiday Express there. We missed that window. So we finally, about a year and a half ago, started working with Santos and the village to develop a plan for workforce housing.
Okay.
Now, I have a lot of, just to give you a little bit about me, I've done about 120 projects in my life, over $4 billion worth. I'm a DC, New York developer. We had the same issues there, workforce housing. I don't know if you're all familiar with Georgetown in Washington DC.
Yes.
Okay, the paper mill and the flour mill and the waterfront there. That's what I did. I built 101 townhouses. My ex-wife always referred to them as itsy bitsy teeny weeny and tiny whiny.
No, little homes, little space
Well, but you know what?
for that.
Yeah, for young people that were looking for a home in Washington, we sold them out in 3 hours. And the smallest was 720 square feet. We had one 840 square feet, and we had one 1,000 square feet. So they weren't, you know, they were not tiny homes. They were small homes.
That's decent size on the East Coast.
But it's also a good size for here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
most of the comments are in that range.
So when I was planning this, I had that in mind, that particular project, especially the paper mill. We did 101 townhouses. And so I have a site plan, which I've given Jake. I didn't bring him with me, sorry. That using that model, small units. I've investigated modular, sectional, all of it. And basically, I've come to the conclusion the good old fashioned building it by stick is really the best way to go. And so we developed one part of we had a split in the property, 2.5 acres. And then we had the
5 acres.
5 acres, yeah.
thank you very much.
Yeah.
And so on the 5 acres, we have floodplain. A little stream with it, which is really, from my point of view, I like it because that can be common area. And we can, you know, maintain it in its wilderness for the project. So I took that out. That's about a little over 2 acres. So that'll be parkland.
Okay.
And then I put 40 townhouses in that 5 acre section. Then on the 2.5 acres, I'm gonna do a lift tech deal.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Lift tech,
I'm sorry, light tech.
light tech, okay,
Lift tech is
The road.
the roads.
Yeah.
okay. So,
Who were also good.
so what is light tech?
Light tech is workforce housing, basically.
Okay, okay.
It's not I hate the word affordable housing, but it's apartments. And under that program, after 15 years, they have the option of buying the unit.
Okay.
But they have to still maintain for another 15 years the requirements to keep, you can't increase the price more than X number of dollars. You have to make X number of dollars, you know, to live there. So for 30 years, it doesn't go away.
Okay,
So we have 60 units there.
okay,
My wife is more of an expert, unfortunately, she couldn't come tonight, but LIHTC is an IRS program,
Okay.
not to the state, through IRS.
It's an acronym, correct?
They go,
That's an acronym, right? Yeah, okay, I just want to have it.
Yeah.
is it LI or LY or?
It's LIHTC. It stands for Low Income Housing Tax
Right.
Credit. Thank you.
Okay,
Baker Tilly is one of the top firms in the US that specializes in selling those credits. My wife was one of the bidders on the old post office of Trump. And they were partners in that deal because it was a historic building and there were lots of credits involved in it. So they have gotten involved in it and they believe they can solve credits.
So it would be kind of like a condo, but you're saying the first 15 years, it would just be a renter and then and what if it was, does it have to be the same renter for those whole 15 years before buying? Or are you saying the first
The
15 years?
renter,
rent is-
that's a good question.
Okay,
The renter that is renting it at the time of the expiration of the
Okay.
15 years has the right.
okay, so the first 15 years, it's a rental property.
Correct.
Then the second 15 years, it's a lease to purchase type of, can be a lease to purchase type of arrangement.
It will be.
And, okay, it will be. And then after that 30 years, then it's just on the market for not necessarily affordable housing, but all during that 30 years, it maintains a certain market, but can increase by any certain amount of market value, et cetera. Okay,
And that's why it's a good program,
Okay.
actually. Because my experience with this kind of housing, if you go beyond 30 years, it starts to wear out. And if you're going condo and then market, and people are gonna come in, they're gonna renovate their units, you know, it's a better process than, I mean, I look in Taos, some of the affordable housing units have been there for as long as I've been in Taos, 28 years, and they don't maintain it. You know, they just.
Sure.
So, we're really excited. I brought in, I call them the three amigos. Three young men that I met a couple of years ago, who were really fabulous as investors. I'm discussing with a builder, you know, who's gonna build the project and bringing him as a partner in this deal.
okay.
And any questions you might have of me?
I have one question.
Sure.
What is your motivation for doing this? Is it just the best possible use you can use of your land?
No, I can use it a lot better.
So I'm just curious, why? Why?
That's a good question. The community can't survive
Without housing.
without this kind of housing.
No.
I have done well in my life. And I just feel like, and I have a partner in it that's worth 40 million, she inherited $40 million, and she believes the same thing. You know, we have to give back. Now, we're gonna giving it free,
Right.
No,
okay, but, and we will benefit a small amount. Much less than the value of the property.
So the 60 units, would those be, like, when you build those, would those be, managed by you as rentals or your company, or
No.
what would that be? Okay.
So there's a new program with the state, I think, Jake, you're familiar with it a little, where basically, we've applied for the funding that he was,
So we believe that the Village of Angel Fire and Bob's Development are the two applications for this grant.
Okay, okay.
That's what we think has happened, and we think we're the only two, because again, this particular is about $2 million was limited to counties that had the big fire 2 years ago. So, you know, we would love to see obviously as much of that, in a perfect world, he'd get some of the money, we'd get some of the money, and both projects go. That would be absolutely ideal, if both could happen, because Bob's project would be a mix of market rate townhomes and affordable housing.
it's not quite market rate.
Well, right, but some of them would be for sale
Correct.
immediately. Some of them would be for rent. So he would basically be getting to steps 2 and 3 while we're stuck at step 1 with just village-owned rentals. He would be adding more housing supply for sale and more housing supply for rent. And obviously, being set up to chase tax credits like this is something that requires some of the expertise and the finesse that goes along it. Doing your first one of these projects is gonna be a wild ride, so,
Sure.
And having Baker Tilly
right, having
as
the,
your partner,
Okay.
sort of.
But,
We're looking at two different projects, sort of a public project and the village-owned project.
correct,
Two separate things.
Which they both accomplish different,
Housing.
different types of housing, which is perfect.
but the 60 units for workforce housing rentals, would those
Yes.
fall under
Yes.
your management or village management or?
No, it'd be under.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So the sale program, the new one, it's brand new.
Mhm.
Nobody's done it yet. But basically what happens is if you can get either free land or inexpensive land, and that's why the price that we put on is very low
Mhm.
to meet that criteria. And we get some of that, those goodies. And let's say the village says, okay, you know, you need a little bit more and we'll donate something,
Okay.
whatever that might be. That creates, for this new program, they give you credit. Let's say it costs $300,000 to build
Mhm.
the 820 square foot. Yeah, it's fine. So instead of selling it for 300,000, well, 300 plus profit,
Mhm.
you sell it for 250.
Okay.
Now, there are certain rules that go along with that. You can't profit. You can only, the value of the property can only go up so much every year. And that's longer than, by the way, just 15 years.
Right,
It goes on for a longer period of time. The New Mexico loves that because before they were lending money and it was tied up, you know, under these programs for long periods of time. Now it's lent to you to build these houses. Okay, you sell them, you've provided affordable housing for some people and they get their money back to reinvest.
to reinvest, okay.
So
But it
So-
has to maintain, it has to stay, basically, kind of has to stay workforce housing.
Correct.
Like the that if that person decides to sell, it can only go up by a certain cap. I remember
Correct.
reading about that,
correct.
yeah.
So does the federal government make you have caps on what you can charge for rent for this workforce housing?
Yes,
Okay,
It's
so
fixed,
you're specifically limited on what you can charge.
fixed rent.
is it fixed rent? No, because you have utilities in there, so. Yeah, it's a, yes, there's a formula
Yeah.
that fixes it, but it gets complicated when you're computing heating, air conditioning. You know, what kind of heating.
But I figured if you were working with the federal government, they have probably some kind of say in what you could cap on your rates.
Right, because it's an IRS program.
Yeah.
Correct.
That's great. So it sounds like we'll have several good options.
What do you need from us?
Mhm.
So smiling face, listen, I have to tell you,
It sounds like you're ready to go and you've done all the work.
I've worked in New York, I've worked in London, which is very complex, I've worked in DC, of course, that's a nightmare. I've worked in Taos, which is the worst of all the. So my experience up here with Santos and Jay has been unbelievable. In that you all really want workforce housing and you're willing to do what's required to get it.
Yeah, we're doing it now, finally.
Yeah, because, you know, in Taos, they're gonna build 6 units next year. Now, they're not quite sure who's gonna build it. They haven't bid it out yet. You know, what program are they gonna use? No developer worth his salt is gonna do 6 units, other than the town has a purpose.
right.
That's different. But, you know, for workforce housing,
They won't make profit, there's no way they'll do it.
The mobilization cost alone,
it doesn't, but you have a woman running it who doesn't know what she's doing.
She's running a nonprofit, trying to get donations to build them.
Yeah, well, good luck with that. That was.
Jack, we have a question from the audience. Jackie?
Jackie Boyd, just as a point of clarification to wrap my brain around this, is this the same property that was proposed for the hotel
Yes,
situation? Okay,
So that ship sailed.
when interest rates are, right now, construction loans for hotels are 14%. Do the math.
Makes sense.
so this hasn't, and I'm just back on the planning and zoning. Has this been brought before the planning and zoning, Santos?
Can we?
Oh, are you
So-
muted?
So, no, I just raised my hand. So
Oh, yes.
the last concept that was proposed and approved by P and Z and council showed an urgent care, retail, commercial, and a hotel. So an updated site plan would have to come before P and Z and council to show the development being provided for housing. I will say the property is still zoned for residential. It's still 20 units to the acre. What you've heard tonight is, I think that's 7 acres, Bob. That's 140 units. And if you're at 106, you're well within the capital.
I'm nearer than what I can do there.
Yes, so
I didn't want,
so we would have to see a layout of how this would be designed. I know council and P and Z have just recently adopted some amendments. So where a project like this that has open common space that's for everybody can be designated on a site plan as well. You know, the updates that P and Z saw last week for the property behind the bank was the first one to show, hey, rather than, 10% per lot, we're going to show it in common areas across the property. So I think if this project continues moving forward, and I hope it does, we can get a site plan that shows how this would be proposed and laid out, where the access points would be coming in. And I know everyone's noticed that DOT is actually filling in the ditch along 64 adjacent to this property as well. So there might be some amendments that are needed for access points to be brought in. I want to follow up on Bruce's question. You know, the federal government every April updates its guidelines on income levels for their programs. And I think the Village of Angel Fire and their application has shown that an individual, a one-person household, has to earn up to $72,000 in a year to qualify. So it's anything up to or below that. So I think that there's a number of people from the village or even Towson. We've said this before. This isn't just an Angel Fire issue. It's a Moreno Valley. It's a New Mexico challenge of finding houses for people. So if this continues and hopefully does, P&Z would be scheduled to look at a site plan amendment that would also then be forwarded to council as well.
and one other, are you done?
That
Your
answers my
question.
question.
There's one other thing that Jake and I are gonna talk about, and that is in our site plan that you have a copy of.
Yep.
And you all can get a copy of it all.
If you've seen the hotel site plan, it's that same site plan, but obviously with a much larger green space. There's no hotel in the middle, and then that green space is then surrounded with housing, so.
But I'll be glad to look at it. I haven't seen it yet, so.
So,
There's still a commercial component. There's still a
Yes.
commercial availability on the site plan. It's just not as great as it was before. So the footprint's smaller, which I think to generate a community with over 100 units, having some type of retail or commercial component adjacent to or on the property makes a lot of sense as well. Also to take availability of Highway 64 access. So again, I think I feel that this project is moving forward closer to fruition. If you've got tax credit partners engaged, I believe you got somebody close to getting this under contract, that it's not going to be just strictly a residential look. There'll still be some commercial added to it as well. And I think we'd like to process it as quickly as possible to start getting permits issued so people can start getting things moving on the property. That's all I got.
Okay.
so the commercial he's referring to is in the farthest corner of the 5-acre property on 64, 6,000, a little over 6,000 square feet. Originally, I wanted to have a urgent care up here. Difficult, Not because it isn't needed, difficult because the hospitals don't understand Marina Valley. Period. We went to Santa Fe, we went to Taos, of course, Taos. And we got no's. So Baker Tilly has a sub company that specializes in tax credits for urgent care. And interesting enough, with those tax credits for an urgent care, they will give money, substantial money, to a hospital. So since we've gotten turned down by Taos and Santa Fe, I'm beginning to think maybe Central might be somebody to go to.
It's possible. So again, one of the questions with the South Central Hospital Group is, can we all get along and work together is the big question there. We know we have a need for healthcare. There may be some additional grant monies even out there because New Mexico is having problems with rural healthcare, not just Moreno Valley, everywhere is. So I think that is on the site plan. It will stay on the site plan. It's gonna be a little bit of a moving target, as obviously we're working through grant awards and what ends up going there. Things that the village wound up providing, kind of back to Lori's question earlier. It's unclear with the new MFA program, how much of the utility work, cause he's already on the corner, there's already water and sewer there. But the more work that can be done via grant, the more units you can get, the buy down, everything gets better. So as we're going through the next, and I don't know when the award is gonna be to figure out if one or both of us got this money, but it's what it's gonna go to.
Okay. So Mike, you had your hand up earlier. Did you get your question answered or do you have something to add?
I've been here 23 years. We desperately need workforce housing.
Sure.
I think the big question, guys, is, do you want the entrance to Angel Fire to be workforce housing?
You already have an RV park there.
I'm sorry,
There's an RV park there. There's a stable there.
and that's a little further down. That's not at the turn.
Okay.
Okay.
So to answer
Appreciate
your question, I don't consider workforce housing.
Of course, I haven't seen the designs, Bob.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just telling you, that's the entrance to Angel Fire.
And the design is, you would move in it.
Yeah, hopefully it's not like what we have across the street.
It is not like what you
Yeah.
have across the street.
And I think that's something P and Z needs to discuss seriously. Love the corner, obviously I want it. I own an acre right there. And this will not bother me at all, will not bother my business. I just wonder if that's what we want to present.
All right.
So it sounds like you just have to resubmit to P and Z, have Santos and everybody work through it. Having a private project in assistance with our village project is a great idea. The more ways you can get housing, the better.
And that was why we wanted Bob to come present. It's not that this, committee is gonna have any needs or oversight over this project, but because it's workforce housing, which is what you all have been working on for all these months now, knowing that there's somebody else trying, and again, we're hoping, but the next 30 days or so, we'll know a lot more on, what's real and what's not.
Okay. All right, great. Any other quick questions from anyone?
I'd like to thank you for giving back.
Thank you for coming in.
Great idea.
Appreciate it.
And Mike Willie's concern is he didn't want a house there, he wants something pretty there that.
Well, I
invites
think
people in.
the entrance ought to look nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, one of the reasons I put townhouses on the 5 acres with the park, I mean, what more could you do to make it attractive there?
No, and the front and center is gonna be the 6,000 square feet of commercial stuff anyway.
Right, whether it's a coffee house or.
Whatever
urgent
ends up,
care,
Whatever ends up there.
Gas
It's
station.
gonna be something, and it's not gonna be, I'm very much into design. If you can have inexpensive housing and still have design.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Can I go? Can I go now?
You're good. Back through the canyon.
Can I go get in line?
Get in line.
Yeah. Wait, going back over.
Thank you very much. for
Thank you.
hearing me.
Thanks,
Bob. Appreciate it. We're gonna do. Yeah, okay.
Okay, so next up on our agenda was to review the incentive
Thanks, Bob.
document that Lori had put together. The purpose of this incentive document is to try to encourage local homeowners and condo owners to make their properties available for long-term rentals. And so I wasn't part of the conversations and everything. I wasn't here, so there may be some background you want to share, but I did read through it. I have a few comments and I don't know if anybody else had any comments about it.
So, but before you go through your specific notes, I have had a brief conversation. I've gotten this in the mayor's hand and talked to him about it. It's
Okay.
something we're looking at, to say, okay, what can we legally add to this?
Okay,
The big concern is if we're providing a benefit to a private property owner, the anti-donation clause may come into play here, so. He loves the idea. I think we all do. It's just making sure that it's structured in such a way that we don't get in trouble in 6 more months. So I don't know if you all are welcome to see this, but the idea was if we could get, and I know homeowners were talked about, but even more so probably the condo owners. We have some condo associations that are almost all short-term rentals right now. And I know in talking to Mike Steely and some of the other owners, it's negatively impacting their insurance rates. You have a 50-unit complex and it's empty. Insurance companies don't like that. So the thought that Lori brought up and we've been working on is, can we put something together? Even if it's only to get 2% or 5% or whatever it is, if it gets us 5 more condos that are long-term rentals, that's all more rentals. And so we're trying to come up with a template here of something we could present to anyone who owns a condo and says, hey, you're short-term renting right now, why don't you consider long-term? Here's some of the benefits you could get out of it.
The grant has already put that in place. We're now at 49% short-term rental, that's all.
You're capping it.
oh, okay, okay.
And the insurance
Mhm.
went from $138,000 a year to $35,000 a year.
Oh, wow, okay.
That's significant.
So that could be,
But I can't sell it because these people want to do short-term rental.
Well, it's that would be some good information to share with the
Sure.
other, with Mike Silly, because maybe he can.
And I'm sure he's seen.
And Stanley does the grant. so-
Oh, okay.
He does, he knows.
Okay, so anyway, I'm just gonna start from the top, if that's okay.
I have one question.
Go ahead.
What did legal say about some of the?
So legal is still reviewing it. Council agenda, we actually have an RFP to go out. We're looking for new legal. We've been kind of piecemealing legal through a few different firms, and our response rates, not just on this, but other things, have not been great. So I'm not sure which of the attorneys is taking a look at this right now, but it is
Okay.
because say we even got rid of your fees. I don't know what the fees exactly would add up to monthly for a condo owner, but it's gonna be, somewhere approaching $100, your trash fee, your wildland fee, water availability fee, all of those fees. If we waive those, we're technically giving you $100 benefit that we're not giving the condo next to you. So we've got to make sure that's done in such a way that we don't trip over something. Yeah, thank you.
I'm not a voting member, but that sounds scary as hell.
It is. It's tricky to do, but if we can do it, there's a supply of condos that we could bring
There's
on.
a ton of condos, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, and I think that while we're addressing that, we could still put together a document that says, that kind of is an appeal to condo owners and homeowners, to convert over. And then, that maybe that part about what the village will do, we can kind of put,
Yeah, no,
add
it was
later.
just,
yeah.
it was open for discussion. That, I just
And
threw
then,
some ideas out there.
real quickly on the grants. Did the condo board vote to do that then? Is that what happened?
But the owner still has the majority of the vote,
Okay.
but
I'm just thinking through if.
Yeah.
At those kinds of numbers, $100,000 savings a year, would other condo associations look to do that or?
guys, it's all about money to these owners.
Yeah.
They don't care.
Right,
They don't need a tax break.
Right.
They want to see the money in their pocket.
Yeah.
And that's, right or wrong,
Incentive.
You know, right or wrong, that's, unless you have some kind of incentive that is good enough.
Mhm.
These guys are making, they're netting $8, $9, $10, $12,000 a year. And you say, but you could net
Okay,
$4,000 a year, would you rather do that?
I'll give Matt.
Okay, so we have 10 minutes left, so I don't know that we'll have time to go through the specific document. Maybe we could add this as a part of a work session, but I do have quite a bit of feedback on it, so I would like to share that with you. And, I mean, it's not extremely substantive, but, just a few changes to the wording and things like that, so.
Yeah,
Okay, all right, so let's maybe do the incentive document, give us time in a work session, we can actually spend some time on it, does that sound all right?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, the next item is an employee survey test case, so Matt,
Did text me back. He apologizes. He had a conflict. He couldn't make it tonight, but he indicated that he will get the survey test this week. He'll get that out.
okay,
Uh,
we did on late last week, we went and finally got the tool, like the subscription paid for, and so, yeah, so Matt's gonna, and I just wanted to make sure, because I didn't know, because I think at one point, sometimes things end up in spam, but I haven't had anything in spam lately, but okay, so so hopefully we'll get that this week, and maybe we can also discuss that in our work session. And then, which we should do a work session pretty soon, because really would like to get that employer survey kicked off.
Yep.
So, okay. The last thing on the agenda was set a work session to review the ordinances, and so I went through basically line by line on and that's what I sent you guys, between what Espanola had implemented as their ordinance that Santos sent us and what the template is that MFA has currently at their link. And highlighted in yellow, the differences, there was nothing substantive,
Mhm.
There was some that was a little bit more wording on the new template that wasn't included in Espanola, and there was maybe just a few things on the Espanola one that was included in theirs that may have been on the previous template, or maybe they added, but for the most part, they're very similar. So coming out of that, what I would, and I said this in the email, is that I really don't know that there is a huge amount of work to do on the ordinance. We already discussed having to adopt the template.
Yep.
So I went through the template, that's exactly what I did, so I really feel like you can start with that template. There's a couple of items in the template that say you need to have a plan for reviewing the RFPs that come in, and making sure that you get this, and this from the people who present their RFPs before they can be accepted. So I think we just need procedures for that, and there's probably some procedures that we can tack onto that are already in place for other reviews of other RFPs. So whether we need to do that again in a work session, I don't know, but,
So I will say the template and all of that has been forwarded on to legal
Okay.
counsel, and I apologize, and
Sure.
not the all-purpose excuse, but we really are looking at a different attorney because our response rates are not great, so, my understanding, this body voted to go ahead and recommend the template go in front of legal, council's agreeing with that, the county's still working on it, so if there's other specific things we need to address in here,
Okay.
I think having a work session is totally fine.
Okay.
Other things that might bump up that list in the work session are, and again, I know there's a lot of behind the scenes work on this, but if we are gonna end up with a dozen rental units in September,
we need the government.
we're gonna need the governance,
And that's-
that needs to be July and August's primary work at this point.
And we've got that draft, and I was gonna suggest adding that to the work session
Yep.
instead of the ordinance, because unless you guys want to go through the ordinance, I feel like it would just be extra work, y'all be just or whatever.
Well,
We
and,
approved it, it's in motion,
Mhm.
and,
there's
and
something else we need to look
Be-
at.
because this is an MFA ordinance, a
Right.
state level ordinance, and we're hoping that they give us lots of money,
Yeah.
we can't really tweak their ordinance template
Right.
very much.
No.
There's not a lot of
No.
input
Right,
that we could give.
And the ordinance does account for the fact that you can come back
Mhm.
and make changes to it along the way. So if we decide we want to add an exhibit or an addendum that says, here's how our RFP process works, or,
Yep.
you know, we can do that. So I think then really for the work session, we want to go again over the incentive, at least something that we can use to appeal to the homeowners. And then the governance would be.
That's to try to get more immediate, because
Right.
If I-
we were getting delayed on building and getting an
Yep.
ordinance and everything. That's why I tried to come up with some other way to get more immediate housing.
Right.
If we have, as a suggestion for the work session, if we pick a date, I would probably take this rough draft to Mike Steely
Okay.
and say, hey, would you come give us some input here? Cause
Okay.
that's really ultimately what we're trying to figure out is how can we convince somebody that owns, you know, Pine Tree Commons or wherever it is, they own a condo, how do we get them, instead of operating it this way, to operate it that way?
Mhm.
What are the incentive structures? And I think what Mr. Woolley mentioned about, you know, $100,000 discount on insurance.
Yeah.
Every condo must be feeling that and going, okay, I was making $8,000 on this now, and
Mhm.
you know, so.
Well, and the thing is that, like, one of the things that, you know, you have that point about the net income loss in there. I was thinking we could reword that a little bit more like, you'll have consistent rental income from month to month versus, and it's probably, it may just be slightly less than what some of the people are getting for their condos. I mean, some people are making 35,000,
It might be
some
an
people are making 8 or
extra
9.
income.
Yeah, so anyway, we
With
can.
$100,000 insurance and an empty condo, they might be happy to have
Right.
somebody in there permanently.
Okay, so what I have for the work session is, I think we should make governance the number one. And then if we get the employee test case done this week, then we'll talk about that, because I do want to get that launched. And then the incentive document will be also but I do agree, if you want to take this to him, and then, we could, and even, I mean, and I could give Lori my changes, but they're probably worth discussion. They're really not that much difference. Maybe I'll just share them and then.
So since you're here and you have a quorum, is there a date in mind?
Is that in mind for the work session?
For work
First or 8, do we wanna, we've got the 4th coming up, so.
I had one committee that didn't listen to me. I would avoid the week of the 4th, just
Yeah.
people tend to scatter, so,
Yes.
we're
So-
going.
So we could,
Yeah.
I don't know how people are about working this week. Or if you want to wait until after the 4th. I have company the 4th. I mean, I could give away an hour, but,
I would suggest the week of the 8th is probably the better bet here.
so let's do our work session on the 8th, and then I don't know, I don't know that we'll have anything necessarily to vote on, other than if we come out of the work session with a governance document that we're ready to submit to council for review. I don't know.
I don't think you're gonna be quite there yet. I think
Yeah.
we're still gonna be working on
Okay,
taking as much cost out as we can to get to these 6 or 10 units or whatever it is. So I think that's gonna put you ahead of us from the building
Okay.
perspective. So as long as you stay ahead of us, that's fine. So.
so I'll send the governance document out that we've looked at it already before. It still has some things like TBD on applications
Right.
and RFPs and all that things, but overall, it had like the criteria for people to qualify for workforce housing and
Yep.
things, so we'll.
Do we have to start or there was some mention of lottery drawing, or
So-
we need to decide something like that if we all of a sudden have housing?
I think a lot of that, we're using kind of the template of Colorado that's ended up with workforce housing, and they end up with obviously far fewer than they can fill. My guess is the number that we're talking about here, I bet 80-90% chance that if we end up with 6 units the village has to rent, I bet most of those go to village employees.
Yeah, and that's the first priority.
The first priority, you know, so maybe, we still need to have the governance
Right.
document in case it doesn't happen.
Okay, so this will be in the governance.
I think
Yes.
we should put it there, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
it's already some in there, but if there's a, you know, if there's an over,
First come,
something
first
about if
served.
there's too many, or something like that, or, yeah, we can add something there, so let's do that.
There's no rush for a lottery for free services because we have no units to give away right now, so.
Right,
No, I know, but we have to decide, like, if all of a sudden we have 6, we don't know how to assign, you know.
I bet you all 6 will be taken up just like that. Same people.
People at the door.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so July 8th, is 5:30 too early or
Do
is
we wanna
5:30?
do it after work hours? You
I mean,
done work sessions before earlier, but yeah,
I mean, I
that's
think-
all we're doing.
I think we decided we would try to honor work hours.
I think that's fine.
Yeah.
That works better for me personally, but I wanna make sure that's what the committee
So
wants.
is, we could do 5:30 or 6, whatever works. 5:30 good, okay.
And then are you
I
gonna
will be
plan,
out of town on the 8th, so
Okay.
I won't be here, but y'all carry on.
Okay.
you gonna plan for an hour or two?
Let's plan for
It's gonna take a while.
Let's
Yeah.
plan for 2, and if we get done early, then great.
Okay.
And then we'll go.
I'll bring the snacks, so we don't have to run.
Okay, that's good. That'd be sweet.
Everybody brings some.
Yeah, okay.
I'll bring some.
All right, great. Well, it's 6:30. We're done on time.
Hey.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
It's online.
Okay, I'm gonna call the meeting adjourned, okay?
Okay.
All right, thank
6:30
you.
PM.
All right.
Thanks, Santos.
They do have a.
Later, Santos.
Space.
Did I say?
That is like a store. Their store